So last night, it became official that Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners would be hiring former Alabama cornerback coach Jay Valai to become the Oklahoma Sooners' next cornerback coach, but also co-defensive coordinator, a move we've got to talk about, but we also need to talk about where Alabama could turn for the vacant cornerback coach position. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you, and two things today. So first and foremost, give me a Y for yes, N for no. Are you surprised that Oklahoma has hired Jay Valai? And let me know what you're thinking there. And secondly, who would you like to see the Crimson Tide go after for that vacant cornerback coach position? I am really interested in hearing which names y'all are intrigued by. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification because I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoy the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though small, are really massive to content creators such as myself and both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all of that being said, we need to talk about this, and we will start with Jay Valai. Jay Valai has spent a year with the Alabama Crimson Tide, and anytime you can get somebody that has experience with Nick Saban, that in and of itself is a net positive. Not only did Jay Valai coach in the state of Texas with the Texas Longhorns, he's also from the state of Texas, and every institution in the nation is looking to have some sort of foothold in Texas because of how much talent is produced. But that's only multiplied when not only are you in conference with the Texas Longhorns, but that's your rival. And Oklahoma has already done a really good job of recruiting the state of Texas year in, year out because they have to, especially when that's cross-state rival. You've got to recruit that area well, and I think that's probably a very big reason that Oklahoma has identified Jay Valai because of his experience in the state of Texas, both as a college coach and then growing up there. So that in and of itself is going to be something we have to watch, but we also need to talk about the titles Jay Valai has because not only is he the cornerback coach with the Oklahoma Sooners, but he is co-defensive coordinator, a title he shares with Todd Bates, but Ted Roof is the defensive coordinator. So what does all this mean? Well, with Ted Roof being the defensive coordinator, Todd Bates is going to be the run game coordinator for defense, and Jay Valai is going to be the pass game coordinator for defense. And this is something that's probably much more prevalent than many of us realize. It's just that the terms aren't explicitly put out there. However, this is what I will say before we move on to what Alabama does next. The fact that Brent Venables has a prior relationship with Roof and Bates from their time at Clemson together, I think is going to make the transition really seamless because it's going to be a continuation of a relationship and of familiarity. They all know what to expect from each other. But for the Oklahoma Sooners, this pretty much well completes the staff under Brent Venables. And with that, I'm interested in hearing from y'all. Which hire do you like most under Brent Venables? I'll give you mine. I'm going to be very honest, and it's Todd Bates, the former Alabama Crimson Tide football player, going from Clemson to Oklahoma, and I love this for a few reasons. First and foremost, his defensive lines at Clemson were always really, really solid. I mean, you went without saying every single year you knew Clemson's defensive front was going to be a very solid unit, and he is a really good recruiter, and that might be an understatement. Todd Bates is a really, really good recruiter and a really, really good coach. Aside from that, he has familiarity with Brent Venables, and that relationship is going to be one that, in my opinion, is going to be a major net positive because Venables has a trust in Todd Bates. They have that familiarity. They can hit the ground running together because they have that succinct relationship. That's going to be huge for any program to get in coaches that have that relationship with each other, but especially for Oklahoma. And the way everything's happened, the way they're trying to rebuild, that is especially big. So, Jay Valai going from Alabama to Oklahoma, and this is going to be an interesting move because Oklahoma is still trying to battle for some prospects as National Signing Day approaches. The transfer portal is going to be wide open, so it's going to be interesting to see what Oklahoma now does in the DB department with Jay Valai as the DB coach under Brent Venables. So I am very excited to see that. As an Alabama fan, I wish nothing but the best for Jay Valai, and I'm very interested to see what the future holds. But now, for the Crimson Tide, what does this mean? And I don't think this is incredibly surprising. I think many Crimson Tide fans knew at the end of this year there would be coaching vacancies. The question was, which vacancies would they be? Jay Valai was one we talked about when the rumors had emerged about Valai to Oklahoma, so that was one that was able to be kind of talked about and understood. But now today, there's also tweets coming out that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to interview offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien. So Jay Valai probably won't be the only exodus from the Alabama staff, but let's be honest, if there's anybody in college football that's gotten used to staff turnover, it's Nick Saban, and it has not slowed him down. But speaking specifically about the cornerback coach position, where do I think the Crimson Tide will go? Well, I'd be very interested in Mark Orfeh, currently a defensive analyst with the Crimson Tide, but he is another individual that has roots to the state of Texas, more specifically to Galena Park North Shore, because that's where he graduated high school from. Galena Park North Shore is one of the most renowned high school football programs, not only in the state of Texas, but in the entirety of the nation, constantly producing top-tier football players. And it's a high school that every major institution wants to have at least some sort of familiarity with because of the players they end up producing. Mark Orfeh having that close relationship not only with Galena Park North Shore, but the state of Texas, because he also played his college football in the state of Texas, I think would be a major net positive. But it goes further than that, because the former Montana State and Utah State coach, now being with the Crimson Tide, is a young guy. And look, I think that could be a major net positive, and he already has a bright future. That's something we need to get out the way. Nick Saban wouldn't have brought him in if Nick Saban didn't identify that he believed Mark Orfeh was an up-and-comer. And so if the Alabama Crimson Tide and if Nick Saban has faith in Orfeh to step up and take that position, I'd be very intrigued. As I was about to say, he's a younger guy, and recruiting is moving in that direction anyways. These younger guys are going to be able to relate to recruits, for the most part, easier than other people will because of the changing of the times, right? It's only natural. It happens all the time. It's just the next wave of that. But I am interested in hearing from Tide fans. I really want y'all to hop down to the comments and let me know who you would be interested in for the DB coach position, because I think there's a lot of good options out there. I'd be very interested in seeing if it's Mark Orfeh for a few different reasons. First and foremost, he has the familiarity with the Crimson Tide staff already, the process and what's expected. Secondly, he's a young guy who Nick Saban obviously has faith in, and I trust nobody more than I trust Nick Saban in these positions, and I think everybody in college football should trust Nick Saban in these positions given his history. And finally, he has the roots to the state of Texas, which is something that is always going to be of massive importance. But not only does he have the roots to the state of Texas, he has the roots to one of the more prestigious high schools for football in the state of Texas, Galena Park North Shore. So, very interested in hearing from y'all. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about these hires. Let me know who you think could fill the cornerback coaching void at the University of Alabama. That's it. See ya.